2. I met a girl in the club and it became an unforgettable nightmare. Let's get it. That's video number 2.
I was 20 at the time when this happened. I still remember this as a vivid memory in my brain that would never get erased. One day, I was at a club with a few friends. I saw a cute girl, which was totally my type at first glance. She had blonde hair and deep brown eyes. Her nose was tiny and cute. Her lips were red like a rose. I approached her and I asked if she wanted a drink or something. She said yeah, and we drank a lot. She told me to come by her place. I hesitated at first, but soon I agreed. I told my friends that I was leaving early, and we booked a cab. We got in the cab, and 15 minutes later, we arrived at her house. Her apartment had a 2-floor. Nothing special, but just normal. We stepped inside, and all of a sudden, I smelled something rotten. I got a bit nauseous and asked her if I could use the bathroom. She smiled and said yes. I rushed in, and as I did, the smell got stronger. That's where the smell was coming from. At first, I didn't pay attention and puked into the sink. I thought that I had drunk a bit too much, but it was not. Just then, I heard a splash of water right beside the bathtub. I turned and opened the shower curtain, and then what I saw made my heart drop. A dead body of a boy around my age, mutilated, was lying in the bathtub obliquely. As I got closer, I realized that his right leg was cut off too. I was freaked out. I wanted to scream, but it didn't come out. But I decided not to go outside, because she might be a psychopath killer and could kill me too. I tried to find an escape. Then I spotted something that I wasn't expecting. A small pocket knife stuck out from his jean pocket. I cautiously took the knife and flicked the door open. There was no one outside, and only that girl was sitting on the steps. I asked her what was in the bathtub, and suddenly, her expression got different. She flashed a maniac grin, and then she took out something from her back. A knife. All of a sudden, she lunged toward me, but I dodged it. I took out my knife and swung around as soon as she came to me and kicked her. She let out a scream as she fell to the ground. I heard some noise upstairs, but I wasn't going to check that out. I sprinted out the door and ran 2 blocks straight without stopping, and then called the cops. The cops searched the whole house and arrested 3 people, all charged for murdering innocent young boys. Then I took a cab back to my house. I called and told my parents about this incident. I wasn't able to sleep that night at all. This was the scariest I've ever experienced. And who knew what would have happened if I didn't find that knife?
It'll be over. That one was good. Alright, I'm finna find the second video. There we go. Alright, got the second story. This story is called The Naughty List. A scary Christmas story animated. Let's get it. Let me get it, let me fit it, let me pull up in the back and I'ma push it. So everybody know that I'm
12 seems to be the age when kids start putting the heat on their parents about the truth behind Santa. I was certainly no exception to this rule. How were Santa's elves able to make that video game I wanted in their workshop? I thought Nintendo owned Mario. Or how about the ever-infamous visiting every house in one night question? Did the Jolly Man own some type of time-extending device? Or perhaps the most obvious question of all, how could he have lived for so long? A lot of people say he trains apprentices who take his place every few decades. Others claim he's just immortal. As for everything else, magic seemed to be the universal lie everyone had agreed on. Whatever the case, I just went with the conclusion that it was my parents' doing. Of course, they'd deny it and claim ignorance if I confronted them, but it wasn't enough to dissuade my beliefs. So
We
one
must talk about
Christmas
the white
Eve,
kids
when I
and
couldn't
the other
sleep,
kids, because we learned
as
that
these
like
questions danced
sets,
among my dreams
the
of sugar
average age for
cereals
us
and
is
new
like
games,
8.
I decided to investigate the noises coming from my living room. This time, surely, I would catch my dad or mom in the act of stowing presents under the tree. At least then they'd let me in on the truth. But as I entered the living room, I saw a man before me that I did not recognize. He was dressed in red and white, with a slightly overweight body, and he wore a stringy fake white beard. His hair, or what remained of it, was graying around the edges of his classic Santa hat, and his eyes were wide with fright as he dropped a present under the tree. Being the intuitive youth I was, I came to one of two conclusions. Either this was a home invader stealing my family's gifts, or this was the real Santa. I opened my mouth to scream, but the man rushed towards me and covered my mouth. "Shh, shh," he said, putting a finger to his mouth, trying to smile. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. I was petrified of this man. Then, slowly, he took back his hand and extended it towards me. "It's all right there, little one. You know who I am, right?" I nodded, not shaking his hand back. The trembling man nodded as well, then grabbed an empty sack lying on the floor and gestured to the tree. "Look, see, I bring gifts. Now run along to bed, or I might have to put you on the naughty list. Ho, ho, ho." He started drifting towards the deeper, hearty voice, normally associated with Kris Kringle, but I wasn't fooled. Regardless, I wiped my eyes and began to step back from the living room, trying to create some distance between me and the stranger. The man simply watched, wiped his brow, and proceeded to approach the fireplace. I stopped and observed, confused as to how he was going to leave my house, but a blast of green flames erupted from the chimney, and the man fell back to the floor. I couldn't see his face, but I'm certain it was twisted in fear like my own. A massive, bony hand spawned from the fire, and the arm that followed was draped in raggedy fur. Then another arm, and then the skull of some wild creature with two large horns following, nearly as large as the fire.
He needs some milk!
The bones popped and snapped as it slammed its hands onto the floor. The entire monster was engulfed in the flame, yet it did not seem to burn anything in the house.
"Eddie,"
the monster declared, speaking to what I guessed to be the man on the floor. No, I did my part, see? 10,000 houses, just like you said, right? 10,000, I did my part.
"And yet you allowed a human child to see you. You know the rules."
Look, I've learned my lesson. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Just let me go, please. I delivered all the...
"Let you go? Did you let that woman go, Eddie? I don't seem to recall you letting her go. This was your second chance, and you've wasted it."
"What are you gonna do?" Eddie whispered. I could make out his quaking figure being overshadowed by the creature in the fireplace. The next sound to be heard was a crunch, with a soft beginning and snapping finish. I jumped as the sound repeated a few times, finally letting out a shaky breath. I prayed in my head that it wasn't what I thought, but when the creature reared its head towards me, I saw the red as it chewed on Eddie's corpse, then watched it slurp up his legs like strands of spaghetti. I covered my eyes and tried to tell myself it wasn't real, and after a quiet minute, I peeked between my fingers to see the monster staring back at me from the fireplace. the pace of my
Oh, hell no!
my eyes unable to escape from the grasp of those empty eye sockets.
Now run off back to bed, little one, or else I might put you on the naughty list.
My legs
Oh, hell no!
I sprinted from my parents' room, diving into the sheets with them. There wasn't a trace of the events of the night before when my family went down to the tree the next morning.
First of all,
There was even a little note next to an
wouldn't
empty
have done this.
glass and a
I would've just
half-eaten
minded
cookie
my
on the
business.
table. Have a Merry Christmas. Signed, Santa Claus. As much as I tried to take in the warm, comforting atmosphere that came with Christmas Day, I couldn't stop watching the fireplace, terrified that the monster would return. At the least, now I knew the truth about Santa Claus.
Who think you fooling? We not new to it. We counted flow.